Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Musician's Mentor podcast. I am your host, Travis Mark, and on today's episode 56, I talk with guitar extraordinaire Mr. Shawn Sonnenschein. Many of you may know Shawn from his work with bands like Black and Blue or Plum, or most recently in his full-time role as lead guitarist with alternative rock band Trapt. I thought that this would be an interesting conversation because, as many of you may know, over the last few years there's been a little bit of controversy around Trapt. This is why I wanted to talk to Shawn. Obviously, he's an incredible musician. I've met him. He's a wonderful guy, full of positive energy and love, respect. He's just a cool dude. And so I thought talking to him about forging forward with a career that sometimes gets a little bit blurred in today's society with cancel culture and shadow banning and just a little bit of negativity all around would be a good topic for musicians who maybe find themselves in similar situations. So I want to publicly say thanks to Shawn for taking the time to talk to me today, especially answering some of these questions that might have been a little bit uncomfortable or tough, and he handled them like a complete pro, which I had no doubt that he would do from the start. As usual, I'd like to remind you all to please leave us a rating or review on your preferred streaming network. It helps us greatly. And I know I mentioned it last week, but don't forget to check out our affiliate partnership with the wonderful people over at Soundbrenner. The link is in the show notes, as is all of the usual links in regards to Shawn and Trapt. But for now, let's get straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the one and only Mr. Shawn Sonnenschein. Shawn Sonnenschein, dude, so good to see you again. Thank you for taking the time and joining me on the Musician's Mentor podcast. I obviously know a lot about your work as a musician, with bands like Black and Blue, more recently Trapt. I know this possibly gets a little weird, but I ask all my guests to do it. So even though I will record a pre-introduction before this goes out, if you wouldn't mind, just so that the listeners get a better idea of who Shawn is, what you're about, what you've done, etc., just give us a little bit of a brief introduction so that they get a better idea as to where you're coming from during the course of this interview.
Very well then. I am Shawn Sonnenschein. I'm the lead guitar player for Trapt. And, if you want to go back all the way, my history starts out on violin when I was 5. First violin in symphony. Moved on to clarinet. Was first clarinet in symphony. And did some hat and cane work for my grandma, who was a ragtime piano player for the silent movies. My mom was one of the greatest sopranoists in the world. Sang for the Roger Wagner Chorale. I grew up with music in the house, laughter, music, and all over the place. Ended up playing sports at a young age. I was actually supposed to be a professional baseball player. I was one of the best catchers in California at a young age. Then we moved to Oregon when I was about 11, and my mom bought me a guitar, and I took lessons from my first guitar teacher was a major blues player, and I stuck with him for a long time until I wanted to follow down the paths of Randy Rhoads and Itzhak Perlman. So Itzhak Perlman was a very major influence on my guitar playing, and Randy Rhoads and Michael Schenker, Alex Lifeson, David Gilmour, the list goes on. So he said, if you want to play like him, here's the record. Go listen to the record and learn his stuff. So I went and found another guitar teacher that knew how to play like Randy Rhoads. He lived about 70 miles away, so my mom used to drive me 70 miles away every week to get a lesson from this guy. And he taught me a lot. I ended up going to LA when I was 16 and auditioning to replace Yngwie Malmsteen um, at the Whiskey in 1982, and met many great players, including Paul Gilbert, who had just arrived in town at the same time, and ended up getting a great gig in a cool band called the Stingers back then, which was a rockabilly band, and did some work, a little bit of work with Billy Idol after that. Had the same management as Kiss for a while. Did some modeling, and then I decided that just wasn't for me. So I went back to Oregon and put together a great band, became really big, and that the '80s ended, and I moved on to the '90s with a new band, a grunge band, 10 Pound Rain, and then a pop punk band called Plum, and then I ended up in Black and Blue after that, and for 16 years I was in Black and Blue. Helped to record their last album called Hell Yeah, and then we parted ways, and I was just kind of floating for a little while until Trapt came looking for me,
Yeah.
and so ever since I've been with them, I feel like that's where I've always belonged. So all these lessons and all this upbringing in music has really trained me to be the guitar player for Trapt. And I feel like I'm home. They're my brothers, and it's like some of the greatest music. And Chris is the greatest poet ever of our kinds. And it's just a privilege to be able to play guitar in that band. So there it is in a nutshell.
Yeah, of
There you go.
course. Yeah, and like I say to pretty much everybody I speak to, we'll segue from a few topics there and kind of dig a little deeper, or some we'll probably miss altogether, because trying to fit someone's whole life story and advice and all that stuff in an hour is almost impossible. But we're
It
gonna we're
is.
gonna hope for the best.
Probably the
So
longest story I tell today, probably.
yeah, exactly. Talk to me about the scene in Portland. Is there much of a scene there? And what are your thoughts about overall location requirements nowadays, with obviously the advances in platforms like the internet and social media?
Well, Portland has always been a hotspot for music. Unfortunately, most of the clubs have been taken over by tribute bands nowadays, which I find to be, good and bad. Um, I would prefer that, they don't promote that so much as they do original music. It's nice to get the crowds moving and then bring in the original music, because where are we really going if we don't have original artists out there getting supported locally? Where are they going to go?
Yeah.
Internet can only do so much for you, but the real life experience is going and sitting down in front of these people and listening to them play right in front of your face. And if people aren't getting that experience, they can do it online all day, but they're just not going to get it live, there's a certain intimacy that you get with somebody that's written their own music, and you're experiencing their heart and their soul. And we can go and watch people pretend to be other people all day long. But in music, that's just not, it's just not a good thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I think, the music has to be live. And for Portland, I think they're succumbing to this generation of tribute bands, and I don't like it. But things can always change. The original players just have to power through it and get out there and try harder and really get the people rallied up. So as far as platforms go, I don't really know too much about that stuff. I'm a live player. I don't know what platforms are working and which ones aren't. I do know that we're on Facebook and TikTok and YouTube, and Chris really busts his ass to keep us out there. And we just put out a new album, but the shadow banning is out of control, and art is supposed to be a free enterprise Nobody should be judging bands and shadow banning and doing those kinds of things, especially for a band like Trapt that's all about love and togetherness and pushing a really great message. I just don't understand what the whole thing is. So I'm not quite sure which platforms are better for any musicians, but I will say I had a student not too long ago, a friend of mine, this girl named Carrie Rothschild, and her daughter was this amazing talent. I gave her a few guitar lessons, and she was already off and running. She became this amazing songwriter, and all she did was to go out and play a few gigs, and she ended up with some following immediately and a record deal
Amazing.
right out of the gate. She's like 17.
Hmm.
So if the talent's there, it's like if you build it, they will come. That rule always works. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. It doesn't matter where you're pushing online. Get out and play live. That's where you're going to really touch people and kick ass. You got to show people in their face what you're capable of doing. That's what they want.
Yeah.
So
I have to agree, man. It's an interesting topic, which again comes up every now and then during these conversations. The idea of playing live seems to scare some people. Some people are totally for it. And then there's this kind of middle ground, especially with the way the industry's changed, where a lot of people don't know how to get out there and they don't know how to book gigs or don't know how to find people who will help them book gigs, etc., etc., etc. So let me spin this on its head just a tiny bit, right? You're obviously in Trapt. I know from my experience that certain bands of certain levels, like bands like Trapt, often work with teams of people, different booking agents, promoters, etc., 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 and they can help fill that diary. And you kind of go, okay, we're looking at doing this kind of leg for this many dates, etc., etc., etc. What would you offer as advice for people who don't have the facilities to team members who can help with bookings? And they're trying to get out there, but they don't know where to start. When I was growing up, it used to be a matter of you could go watch bands, and if you yourself wanted to be in a band, if you went to a certain venue long enough, you got to know who owned that venue, and you were like, dude, can my band play here? And 9 times out of 10, it was yes, especially if you could bring a little bit of a crowd, then it was definitely yes, and they kept booking you. But I see with a lot of younger acts coming up who they don't have a clue how to get out there. So if we were to, hypothetically, of course, make you start again, with the knowledge you have now, what would your game plan or action plan be to get out there? So you're not in Trapt. This is all hypothetical. You're not in Trapt. You're a guitarist. You're trying to get out there. What's your plan?
Well, it goes back to one of my first bands, in the 80s, actually. We just focused locally. So the important thing is that you hone your skills. That's the number one thing. And getting in front of people as often as you can when you're playing is very important. And we used to just throw house parties and play in the basement. Get a bunch of beer and pizza, and people would come over and just sit in on our rehearsals. And that eventually grew so big that when we started playing shows, we had an automatic crowd. And they were all of our friends. We didn't depend on random people. We depended on our friends to show up. We went to parties. We pushed our demo tapes on people. We cranked them up in the car while we were driving by people. We did everything it could. We made our own fake posters, just saying, come and hang out with us. It got so big that we ended up renting a 5,000 square foot warehouse to live in. And we put up a big stage in there. And we get about 300 people a night coming over just to hang out, drink beer, eat pizza, party with us, and listen to us rehearse.
That's cool.
Now, so if you can get over people being insecure about people watching you rehearse, or people being insecure about being around you when you're doing any kind of music, because they want to be around it, they want to be a part of it, then you're growing this beautiful magic. And we threw a word of mouth only New Year's Eve party with two of our other favorite bands, and 1,500 people showed up. 1,500 people.
Wow.
We got in trouble by the liquor commission.
Oh yeah, need permits, you know?
We were just 19, 20 years old, but if I was going to do something again, I would focus locally like that first and grow a great big support system. That way, when you do go to a record company or something like that, or you want to support yourself online, if you're going to film and do a show, you just throw a free show for all those people and they'll come see you just to hang out with you. And they're like, hey, they're doing this for free. We should go support them, and say, hey, we're doing this for this or whatever. And then invite the record execs out and they'll see what your support looks like and go, we could do something with this.
Yeah.
It's really important to start out and grow that seed locally and expand it as wide as you can. Now, if you want to name as a guitar player, that's the other way to do it, is with a band and showing the world that you know how to write music and you know how to play guitar. Anybody can sit by themselves and rip a guitar. They can shred, you can learn how to shred, but playing with a band and writing songs that are heartfelt and connect with people, and you can do that live and practice connecting with people live, give your lead singer a chance to get out there and get his thing together to where he's natural on stage and he's not putting on a show, but he's actually just connecting with people and saying, I identify with you. We identify with you. Everybody in the crowd needs to be identified with, and they want to know that their story is being told. So that's where it starts. I think that's the way I would do it again,
That's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about the first, or maybe some of the earliest memories you have when you kind of realized that pursuing music as a career was going to be something you did. I mean, I know you mentioned the modeling thing, you mentioned the baseball, you spoke about kind of some of the upbringings within the guitar lessons sort of stuff, but was there a definitive time that you were like, I'm going to totally do this as a job? Or things just started to roll and you kind of fell into it?
Well, like I said, I grew up in a musical family. My dad was he just was so smart about music, and I think that's why my mom was so comfortable around him. He knew everybody in the music industry. Like, I could show him a record, a symphony record, and from his time, because they had a lot of symphonies back then, the real symphonies, like the New York Philharmonic or whatever, and he could listen to it and tell you everybody's name that's playing in in that certain symphony, and he could tell you everything about it. And my mom was one of the greatest sopranos. She toured the world as she was the greatest sopranos in the world. I'll just say that. Her best friends were like Marty Nixon and Marilyn Horne. They were West Side Story was Marty, So I grew up in a music family. I had a very tough childhood. And when I found music, it really opened me up. So playing violin and clarinet was more training for me. But when I got the guitar and I started playing with some of my friends, and then I started, all of a sudden, it just clicked. And I could play differently than anybody that I knew in the world, really. After I did traveling and everything, I had a different technique and a different style. But I used to practice 8 to 10 hours a day, every day. My mom came home from work once, and she's like, "Did you go to school today?" I said, "No. I was in the basement practicing. I was listening to David Gilmour, and he plays this one note and this comfortably known solo. And he just plays one note with so much meaning. And I just spent the whole day trying to figure out how to play one note with meaning." And my mom looked at me and went, "Okay." She turned and walked away. Because she knew it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're taking it seriously,
yeah.
I was getting good grades and everything. I mean, it wasn't about my grades. It was just about taking something seriously. If you're going to take something very, very seriously, she knew you have to start at a young age if you want to be great at it. You have to train. You have to train. You have to train.
Yeah.
So I knew at a very young age, and now I'm talking, this is like I'm 12 years old that we're talking here. Got the guitar at like 10, 11. I learned classical. I was taking classical guitar lessons. I was following all my grades. I was getting lessons. I was using those. I was utilizing everything I got. But yeah, I knew at a very young age what I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was very, very important to me that I continued to do that.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for this day.
Amazing. What, in your opinion, now that you've been a career musician pretty much your entire life, what is the hardest part about that vocation for you?
Oh, personal relationships mostly. It's really, really hard to have a romantic relationship because I tour so much, and it takes a special kind of person to understand what a musician does and be tolerant of it, I guess you might say, and be supportive. There are rules about in my life about what you do in a romantic situation. When I was younger, it was just a free for all. But when you get older, you realize that's not a good idea, and you have to really, really be on point and be serious and prove that to anybody that wants to become romantically involved with you, because they think you're just out there, fucking the whole world.
Yeah.
And it's not like that, really. For a serious musician, it's like I have rules. I don't take any roadkill, and it keeps you focused. And really, these days, it's not a safe thing to do at all. So the hardest part is the romantic things, and having a girlfriend. It can be very challenging because they may come into it thinking it's one thing and it's a very serious occupation.
Yeah,
it's an all day long job. We don't go 9 to 5. When you go on tour, you're at work constantly, and I love that about it. That's my favorite thing about what I do is that when I'm touring or recording, it's the constant action. I need that. I've always needed it. But that's the first hardest part. The other hardest part would have to be keeping my relationship very solid with my kids. I have 2 kids, and I'm not seeing them as often as I would like to, and being in their lives as much as I would want to be, because they're just young enough where they can't come up with me yet. They're getting close to where maybe I can bring them with me soon, but those are the 2 main things, man. But other than that, it's all blast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier kind of free floating for a while after the Black and Blue finished. I know you did a bit of freelance stuff. I found songs and stuff you'd written, all that kind of stuff. All cool. Eventually you end up in Trapt, which is the band you're in now, and we've spoken a little bit about you in the course of the few minutes that we've been talking. Talk to me about how the opportunity came about.
All right. Well, it was, we went through COVID, or the lockdown is what I call it.
Oh, yeah.
It's real time. And I did, I'm sitting right now in the Purple Playhouse.
Amazing. I was wondering where you were, because I was like, that looks like a dive bar.
Big safe here, in my basement. And I used to during COVID, I would do a FaceTime live show here called the Purple Playhouse, right? I try to do that every week. It's hard to write a show once a week, as you probably know.
Yeah.
So I tried to keep up with that, and I was writing a bunch of music, and then a friend of mine came to me and said, "Hey, y- um, they're doing a new James Bond movie, and you should write a song for that movie." And I said, "Sure," So I wrote this song called "Another Love, Another Kill," and it's an epic thing. I didn't write a title track. I wanted end credits. I worked everything I had to get. I recorded it and I sang on it and everything. And I actually wanted to get it to them, and I wrote it actually for Pink to sing.
Cool.
And she was crazy expensive, so I worked some channels, and eventually the song got to the producers of the movie, and everybody was helping me to get it there. So that was it. They did hear it, which is cool. It's a great song. It didn't make the movie, but the cool thing is that, it challenged me to do something a little bit different with what I was writing. And I really tried hard to get that to work. So I was working on another song, and I heard this singer that I really wanted to work with. So I put the word out. His manager called me and said, "Hey, I can hook you up with this. And by the way, do you have management?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Let me take you on and let me manage you, and I can help you, get moving." And this was still during COVID.
Yeah.
And so I had another song called "Coming Home," and I wanted the singer from Rough Cut to sing it at that time. And then he was telling me things that we needed to do to get prepped for auditions and things like that. And then he just calls me one day and he said, "Hey, you know about Trapt?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, they need a guitar player. What do you think about auditioning for Trapt?" I said, "I'd love to." And so he hooked me up with Chris, and Chris told me what to learn. He said, "Learn the first album, right?" And I said, "Okay." So I had basically, they were going on tour in 4 weeks at that point, and I said, "Okay." So I hadn't even seen a seven string in person at that point yet. So I was like broke, and I was like, called my brother. I go, "Dude, I got to get a seven string. I got this gig, and he goes, "I'll help you." And my guitar tech worked at a guitar store, and they both rallied to get me a seven string. And I learned that, and I had to learn how to use a helix, and I had to learn all these songs and get the sounds trapped down. And, I didn't eat for a long time, so I had to get back in shape.
Yeah.
I spent 1 week learning the wrong album.
Oh, no.
So I learned like 3 songs off of Amalgamation right out of the gate, because he said the first record.
Yeah.
No, technically the first record. So I messaged him and I go, "Hey, I don't really think this is my thing." And he goes, "What? This is," I said, "This," and he goes, "That's not the first record. That's just the first release. The first real record is, the major release." And
Yeah.
I said, so it was like going from listening to like, Primus meets Limp Bizkit to Journey. All of a sudden it was this beautiful, amazing, melodic, gorgeous, just everything about the whole record was just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I knew right away that it was going to be the most challenging thing I had ever done, but the most rewarding. And so I learned it, and we got down to the day where I needed to fly out, and I packed up two Marshall amps, heads, 6 guitars, and all my luggage, because I thought, if I'm going in to be in this band.
Yeah.
I'm not going to audition. I'm going to, because I knew it. I knew the record by the time I went. They tried out many guitar players, many of which couldn't even get through one song. And by the time I got there was only 2 days left before the tour started.
Yeah.
So I was literally the last chance they had. They said, we're calling in a ringer, and they called me a ringer. And because our age differences are a little bit spread out. But I thought, all right, if I'm going all the way. I'm not going in half-ass. I'm bringing everything I got, all my knowledge. And I showed up. The drummer was the first guy I met. And we started to jam a little bit. And that Pete showed up. Honestly, when I first saw the band playing live, it's the song that got me into the band the most was Hollow Man. And I was like, I have to be in this band. I want to jam with that bass player. That guy's fucking cool as hell. And so I'm like, when I met Pete, I was like, dude, there you are in front of my face after everything. So we jammed a little bit, and then Chris showed up, and we went through one song, and then we went through another one, and we went through a third one. And Chris like, can you learn this other thing really fast? I'm like, dude, I'm really overloaded right now. I don't even think I can get through much right now except for these songs. And so he just reached his hand down, and he shook my hand, and he goes, congratulations, you're in Trapt. Get on the bus. And I'm like, fuck, So it was really exciting for me. And over the years that I've been in the band, we've all become best friends, literally. Here's a little tidbit of information for you. After the fourth gig on that tour, I quit.
Oh, wow.
Because I failed a few shows. I was picking up the wrong guitars with the wrong tunings for songs. And, if anybody knows anything about Trapt, there's a lot of different tunings going on with their songs. And it was very confusing in the beginning. I used to text message Pete before a show and go, what key is this song in again? And I'd have to retune the guitar. And they stuck with me through all that and believed in me. And when I quit, I said, listen, I went to the tour manager. I said, hey, I'm failing, I don't want to disrupt the legacy of this band, because I'm not doing it right, and I go, you need to call in your backup. And he looked at me and he says, I got news for you. You are the backup. And I said, great. What are we doing? He goes, what do you need? And I said, I need a green room every day. I need a practice amp, and I need 5 hours alone every day to go over this music and polish it up. And after I did that, things started to rock. Chris picked me up off stage a couple times, hugging me. It's like, you did it, you're doing it. You're doing it, bro, you're doing it. He was so happy. Called me as David Gilmour a couple times. I was really, really cruising. And we went through a lot of rough times since then together as brothers. We've argued, we've fought, we've, tested each other's patience musically. We've challenged each other to become better, calling each other out when things aren't exactly as they should be musically or whatever. And that's the bonding time that you get. Now we're inseparable. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a lot longer story than that. I try to weave it down for you, but that's kind of how I want it.
Amazing, man. And listen, we're going to stay on the Trapt topic for a couple of questions here. This next one's an interesting one, but I'm hoping to get your take on it. And I say this, again, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, pinch of salt kind of based, because when I met you guys here, whenever we played with you guys, I think that was maybe close to a year and a half ago or whatever, I thought you guys were all cool as hell. Like, nobody seemed to be weird at all. And even Chris, he was great. Now, I know you used the term shadow banning, and I know that there was a period in 2020 when Trapt got a little controversial, or at least some things got controversial. I don't want to talk about all of that. I want to keep all of this positive. And like you've said, Trapt's about love, and let's go with that. But what I'd like to know is, during that period, this is obviously just before you get the call, I'm assuming timeline-wise, to join the band. Did any of that negative publicity that they were getting at the time kind of pop in your head and make you think about joining the band away from the music? And furthermore, to kind of like not segue this too much, but furthermore from that, could you offer any advice to musicians who potentially always try and involve personal things versus business things, and then therefore either refrain from getting employment or don't get jobs as musicians because they kind of can't draw a line between the professional and the personal side when it comes to certain things? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. I respect those questions a lot. A lot. First of all, no, nothing that Trapt did scared me away. As a matter of fact, it inspired me. People that are brave and stand up for themselves. I knew right away I wanted to be Chris's friend and I wanted to back him up. And anybody that wouldn't do that, I thought were cowards. The music that he was putting out and the band, how hard they had worked to get to where they were. He was standing up for what he thought was right. And I thought it was a noble cause. He's a patriot and a strong person and a great leader. He's got great leadership qualities. And he was almost on the savant level when it comes to talent. I knew right away that I wanted to be his guitar player forever. And nothing that band had done scared me away. I thought people were looking for reasons to hate them. Any time that you pull up a political, especially, in the Trump era, if you're going to speak up, you're in for a fight.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which side you're coming from, especially since the all the protests. I'm in Portland, Oregon, where it really all rooted from. So I watched all these people begin this, terrible experience. And here was a band that was standing up for what they thought was right. And I honestly, from my point of view, I don't think any band should get involved with politics. I had friends with that. I lectured them about it. I said, listen, you just lost half your crowd. Why would you do that? You're not a politician. You don't have a voice. You don't have a degree in politics. You don't have a voice in politics because you don't know anything about it. You're just speaking from, your emotional side. You're a musician. Stick to that. That's what you do. And I honestly, when it came down to it, I knew that I wanted to be in Trapt, and I knew I was their missing brother immediately. So it didn't bother me at all. I thought that everything they said was on point, and even the controversial stuff, I said, he's got a point there. I don't understand why everybody's taking it to this really insane level. We're just making a point about the difference between, this and that. And I just thought, wow, it's obvious. But as far as, what was the second part of the question?
Just, just some characteristics or attributes that people might be able to work on so that they can almost differentiate the difference between personal opinions. We've kind of gotten to this point where, especially with social media, which I was talking about earlier, it's almost like discussions aren't quite had. You like red and I like blue, or you like milk and I like dairy-free milk, or whatever the case may be. And suddenly there's all these grounds to not be friendly. And it's kind of strange. And so I was trying to spin it into a musical context in that, how can one develop skills? I suppose they would be social skills, so that even if you don't necessarily agree with somebody's point of view, it's just their point of view. Everybody's entitled to an opinion or a point of view. You don't always have to be that close-knit to those points of views, and you can still be in a band with somebody, or you can say, hey, they're entitled to their opinion and continue to work, is basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's the way it used to be anyways.
Yeah.
I always, my way of thinking about this, first of all, we're in a very precious time in history. We're all learning more about each other than we ever have in history. The divide is teaching everyone that we are different in the way we think. We are literally divided, like almost two different brains, left brain, right brain. It's not red pill, blue pill. It's almost left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
So we're all being taught to that eventually everybody's going to see the fact that none of this matters. We're all fighting for nothing.
Yeah.
We're all arguing over nothing, honestly. And it's made, one side grow to be a certain type of people and another side to continue on, whatever. But I always have thought, so you have bands like Rollins Band, things like that, really political bands,
Yeah.
punk bands, do what you feel like you need to do. I mean, it's an art form. This is a platform that has always been wide open. This is one of the only uncontrolled art forms in the world. You can write a song about anything you want. You can perform it in front of people. You can drive people crazy. You can drive them to riot. You can drive them to love each other. You can drive them to peace. You can drive, you could be John Lennon or you can be whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
It's up to you, and that is the greatest part about being mostly about just being a human. The second part about that is being an American. So we still have free speech, no matter what anybody says. We can still write whatever the fuck we want. You could say the F word. I could say I hate the president, and you won't get killed. We live in a free society still, thank God. So this is an art form, and if you're going to start writing or you're uncomfortable playing with other people, then grab the people that you're not uncomfortable playing with,
Yeah.
And they're there. Everybody's there. Create, a band isn't just music. It's also a brotherhood,
Totally.
whether girls in the band or not. It's still a brotherhood. It's a family. It literally is a family.
Yeah.
And most musicians are orphans in a way of life. And so we all come together because we need to do something with people. So for me, I can give a shit who I play with, because when it comes down to it, you're playing music. And if you got a great musician there, to bring politics into that, or whatever it is nonsense.
Yeah.
You're there to create something beautiful. And if your talent is needed, why would you disperse that by mentioning something that has nothing to do with it at all?
Yeah.
If you're a drummer and you're coming in to play on the next, Coldplay record, what the fuck difference does it make what your policies are, your politics are? It makes nothing. It matters not.
Yeah.
Play the song, kick ass at it, and support your career. That's the way that should work always.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, dude. Totally.
It's always it for me,
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like it is interesting because if you want to put a term to it, cancel culture, for lack of a better term, it's so out of control at the moment. Like every day I see something or somebody did something 4 billion years ago and there's a reason to hate on them for it. And it's like, it's cool. I get it, and I am a big believer that everybody should have their opinion. So if that's how they feel, totally cool. But it is interesting because all these very vocal, opinionated people seem to forget that none of us are perfect. Like, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, dude. Like, we all do certain things that I don't know if any of us really have the right to judge. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's just a bit weird. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about touring. I mean, you guys are freaking road warriors, man. Constantly on the road. It seems as though every time I see any posts, it's a new leg, a new run, a new town, a new city, a new place. Doesn't really matter. It's all good. I think it's amazing. You spoke about how you love doing that. What I'd like to ask is, have you got any sort of possible things that you like to try and do to stay sane on the road, or anything that you do to try and look after your overall health?
We try to work out on the bus. We have push-up bars and stuff like that. I cook for the band on the road. So I have a culinary degree. I was a chef.
Cool.
I forgot to mention, that's my other love. I got a culinary degree. I used to own a restaurant in Portland, and I've been in the trenches as a chef for years. So here's the thing: when you're a musician, you're broke. So the only way you're going to eat is if you cook. And a lot of musicians back in the 90s were cooks in restaurants. And they were some of the best cooks in the world because they're artists, right? And that's how we ate, You got to work. Your paycheck goes to pay your rent, your bills, and buy your instruments and whatever the fuck you need. And you just go to work and eat there, And that's how that worked. So I cooked for the band when I first got in the band. That they were eating like shit, and so I talked them into getting a countertop, stove. This is a real thin one, like a Cuisinart. We have a microwave on there, and that thing is like a air fryer and a stove and everything. So I immediately started getting groceries and buying like organic chicken and kale and quinoa and brown rice and sweet onions. Like go wherever we could. And I started putting together meal plans for the band, and they started eating way better on the road. So that was another thing that we did to say. Now, when I come home, I'm in the gym a lot. I work out, 4 days a week.
Good.
For at least an hour to an hour and a half every time I go in there. I have to keep my body in shape. I'm the oldest guy in the band, so I have to keep up with these youngsters. You know what I mean? So when I come home, I mellow out on partying and stuff. I try to really focus on sleep and exercise and eating really well. That way, when I get back on tour, I'm at the top of my game again. By the time we're at the end of the tour, we're pretty much beat to shit.
Yeah.
And there's drinking, there's partying. We're staying up till 4. We're hanging out with people, with fans, and just, other professional musicians. And it can go on until 4 in the morning, and then we have to get up and go to sound check by 1. So that's part of the game, is socializing with other people and keeping your ties and your relationships tight with everyone. So, and then there's, taking care of the instruments. I'm also like the guitar tech. So I take care of all the instruments. I take care of Chris's setups. And, there's a lot of work to do there. So yeah, it is kind of tough to stay healthy on the road. But we do our best. And, I take a lot of vitamins when we're out there, and we take a lot of naps too. That's the other thing that we do. It's like anytime there's a break in the action, everybody runs to their bunk, crawls in there, and they're out. It's an hour or 2 hours. That's what you get. And my thing is like, when it turns 6 o'clock, we generally have a break till about 9, and I'm in my bunk from 6 to 9.
Yeah.
Literally wake up, get myself ready, have a shot of whiskey, hit stage, and that's basically it. You better, when you're off tour, you better do everything you can to replenish and rebuild your body, and your mind, and because the second you hit it again, man, it's a train, and you get on that fucker, it's moving hard, and you got to stay with it. It's not easy. But yeah, there you go. I think that pretty much summed up your question, did it not?
Totally. And that actually brings me to my last question, Shawn. What is either the best piece of advice you've ever personally received in regards to being a musician, or what do you think has been something you've learned along the way that might be good advice for up-and-coming musicians?
Well, first of all, the greatest saying I've ever heard is, with much effort comes the illusion of ease. If you put that into your brain and remember that every day, because there's always somebody better, all right? But you're an original musician. So while there may be somebody better, there's nobody that is you except you.
That's great.
So always remember that in your training. Teach yourself to be your original self, always. Find your own fashion. I don't look like I fit in Trapt generally, you know? I'm the one off. And I asked Chris about that one time. I said, "Are you okay with the way I look?" And he goes, "Yeah, I love having the gypsy guitar player stand next to me." And I go, "Gypsy guitar player? I guess I could see that. Okay, cool." You know? People are going to see you differently than what you see yourself as. Mm-hmm. So, which is the weirdest thing I ever heard in my life, you know, because here you are trying to be this musician, you're taking your influences, you're, you know, being yourself, quote unquote, you know? So I would always tell people, I go, leave the Bermuda shorts and the running sneakers at home. Get dressed. People are paying to see you. Make it special for them. Make your guitar sound great. Make yourself look the best you can. You are, for lack of better words, rock star.
Yeah.
Even if you're not one, the second you hit that stage, you're a star. Prove it. Prove it. Don't try too hard. Relax. Let them come to you. You don't have to dance. You're not a monkey. You are a musician and an artist. Trust your art. Trust your sound. Trust how powerful you are as a musician. When you hit that stage, trust it. And remember that you're an original person. They can't go anywhere else in the world to see you. So that's the best advice I ever got. The greatest thing that I ever came up with on my own was be ready for anything, because everything is going to happen.
Very nice.
That's my own thing that I made up. And I've stuck to that because really, truly, when you're out there, it's a crapshoot what's going to go down. Yeah. That's why it's called rock and roll.
Yeah.
Enjoy. Have fun. That's it. No.
All right, Shawn, dude, that was excellent. Thank you so much for your time. I got loads from this. I'm sure my listeners will as well. I wish you nothing but the best for the future and keep fighting the good fight, my brother. I'll talk to you soon and stay safe out on the road, man. Peace.
Thanks, my brother. Cheers. And like you said, keep fighting the good fight.
Peace. Alrighty, Shawn Sonnenschein, everybody. I want to publicly, once again, thank Shawn for his time. I want to thank each and every one of you who continue to listen to the show for your time. As I mentioned earlier, please don't forget to leave us a rating or review. And if you need some help with your band, forming timelines, sorting out your social medias, getting the most out of your rehearsals or recording sessions, drop me a DM or check out musicians-mentor.com. Hopefully, episodes like today leave you with a positive feeling and make you understand that, we are human. We make mistakes sometimes, but every day is a new opportunity to do something great. And I think Shawn's just such a great example of that. I wish him and Trapt nothing but the best. He said it in the beginning of the episode, we're all about love. Well, I couldn't agree more. Positivity is the way. So let's build each other up rather than break each other down. I wish you nothing but the best. Keep pushing. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
All right, here we go.
New Phineas and Ferb is here.
We're back, baby.
For 104 more days.
I know what we're gonna do today.
Of summer vacation.
I am ready for summer shenanigans. Let's do it. Oh, yeah.
All right. We're gonna bust Phineas and and Ferb once and for all.
Are we gonna do this again?
New inventions, shenanigans, innators, adventures, and songs.
Brand new summer vacation.
New Phineas and Ferb starts June 5th on Disney Channel and next day on Disney Plus. On DisneyPlus.Disney.com.